Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Autism Hope education page. I am just super jazzed to introduce our next guest. I'm going to be introducing Joe Carr, and we are just so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, before we get started, today our topic is autism and the paleo diet, and food is obviously the best medicine, right?
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in food is either medicine or poison, so I love, love, love this topic. But before we get started, can you tell people that are watching a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Joe Carr. I'm 37 years old. Live in Austin, Texas. I am autistic and also on the board of Autism Hope Alliance, or the advisory board, that is. And so really passionate about helping people integrate their autism and understand the benefits as well as overcoming the challenges in the same way that I have in my life. And I also run a baby food company with my wife that focuses on paleo-inspired, nutrient-dense baby foods, purees that are great for infants or really anyone who prefers pureed food.
I love that, especially when when you're looking for baby food. It's one of those things. I remember my son is now 17, which is like mind-boggling to me that he grew up that fast, right? Uh, However, I remember looking at baby food back in the day and trying to find out the different ingredients and wanting to make sure I gave my son the purest, most high-quality ingredients I could find. And I remember even then it was kind of a challenge where I gave up and started trying to make my own. So
Mhm.
I love that you have that. I just think it's so amazing. So let's just dive right in. What do you
Totally.
believe the role and like what is the role in diet in autism? How does that kind of go together?
Sure. So, as a kid, I wasn't diagnosed with autism until college. So as a kid, we didn't know what my issues were. I had a lot of social challenges. I had really big energy, took over all kind of groups and social gatherings, was constantly in trouble at school, and had a lot of physical challenges. My stomach hurt all the time. Doctors could never figure out why my stomach hurt, but I was always in pain, and I was obese. I was like overweight, which just contributed even more to the bullying and the social isolation and my bad feelings about myself. And I was a picky eater. So, as a lot of autistic kids are, I lived on canned ravioli and nachos and dill
Wow.
pickles. Pickles, nachos, and ravioli was like what I would eat, and my mom could get some other foods in me too, but that was like the staples. And, ultimately looking back, those foods are all full of what we know to be irritants, irritant to the gut, allergens, gluten and dairy and red dyes and all kinds of things that we now know are not optimal foods for really any human. But with autistic people, we're really sensitive. We know that we're sensitive to light and sound and touch, and we get overwhelmed easily. But we're also sensitive. I believe we're sensitive at the molecular level, which means that any kind of toxin or irritant is magnified for us. So whereas, maybe gluten, the average person can eat a fair amount of it and not really have severe symptoms, for us, because gluten is known to be irritating to the gut, it's like extra, extra, extra irritating to our gut. And any problems with the gut now, they know this like gut-brain connection thing, where if the gut isn't healthy, then the brain starts to have trouble. So even in non-autistic people, they can have, symptoms of, mental illness and other things due to gut issues. And so for autism, they've done a lot of research on looking at the gut health of autistic people and how much more manageable some of our symptoms are if we have a really healthy gut biome. And that really starts with diet. That really starts with what we eat and don't eat to feed the good parts of the gut and to avoid irritation.
So you talk about diet and autism, why the paleo diet? Like, why do you feel like that's one of the, I guess, your first go choices? And why do you think that's so beneficial for those on the autism spectrum?
Yeah, so I tried a lot of different diets, both for ethical reasons, for, just personal health related to autism, all kinds of stuff. I tried veganism and vegetarianism, which did not work at all for me. I discovered that I had a candida overgrowth, which is a type of fungus, and I did a candida cleanse, which essentially cuts out all sugar sugars and carbs, and discovered that actually I really don't need grains or any kind or a lot of carbs. Like I can live on meats and eggs and vegetables and fats and nuts without any kind of carbs. So that was sort of the first thing I discovered, was like, wow, I'm actually healthier when I don't eat these. But then when I met my now wife Serenity, she introduced me to the paleo diet. And paleo diet is based on an ancestral health perspective. It looks at the original humans. You know, for 95% of human history, we lived on this planet as hunter-gatherers. So our DNA, the way we evolved to our current state, was as hunter-gatherers, where we subsisted on meat and animal products that we hunted, and vegetable matter that we could dig up and gather. We did not have agriculture for 95% of our history. So no grains, no sugars, obviously no processed foods, no dairy, right? Like it was what we could find in nature. That is what we're biologically wired to thrive on. Now the human is very adaptive, so we can live on grains, we can live on sugar, right? It doesn't kill us automatically. You could argue that there's lots of health problems from it, but like, you know, but in terms of optimization, like if we want to look at what's the most optimal diet, looking at our ancestral way of eating is the paleo approach. And so what it does is it takes the modern diet, which obviously is dependent on agriculture, and says, how can we mimic those foods that we found in nature? And, you know, so focusing on really good, healthy meats, especially meat that's raised in a way that is most in harmony with nature, like meat that's raised on pasture or grass-fed, or like, you know, not in these big factory farms. And then also, you know, really quality vegetables, and going for nutrient density. Like if every bite counts, if you want every bite of your food to have maximum nutrition, you know, you want to cut out the things that don't have as much nutrition. And so essentially rice, wheat, corn, other kinds of grains, sugars, including dairy, even legumes, are all actually low nutrition when you just look at ounce for ounce how much nutrients they have. And so for autism, you know, I had a lot of challenges, you know, lots of severe anxiety, a lot of social stuff, you know, like I said, constant stomach pain, gut issues. I had skin rashes. You know, I was, you know, in addition to issues, so all the social issues with understanding subtleties and getting overwhelmed by sensation. So in trying to conquer all that, I was determined to do whatever it takes, because I wanted to continue to live and thrive in my life. And so I just discovered that diet played a role in that. There's lots of other things to do, as many autistic people and their families know, but diet was one of those that's like on a, you know, every couple hours affects how I feel. And I just discovered through trial and error that the paleo diet was, you know, one of the how I felt the best and contributed the most to my sanity, and gave me the best energy and the best focus, and cured my skin and cured my gut. But now all this research on gut health really has proven that the ancestral approach really mimics the gut health approach, which is eliminating irritating foods from the gut and allowing maximum gut health, which isn't just cutting out grains and sugars. It's also adding in fermented foods, bone broths, organ meats, these really high nutrient foods that really repair the gut, because I'm going to be repairing my gut for my whole life from that childhood of ravioli and nachos, you know. So like, but, you know, just really focusing on nutrition, and that seems to have really helped me and a lot of autistic people I know.
So what happens today, when you ever get an infraction? Like, is there ever a time where you eat something, you go, oh man, I really should not have eaten that, or it was somebody put something in front of you that just like, oh, too good to try to resist?
Yes, beer and dairy are my are the two things that like I cheat periodically on, right? Because cheese, man, you know, there's just no replacing cheese. And you know, I've replaced my nachos pretty well with plantain chips or siete cassava chips and cashew cheese, and you know, there's some great coconut based yogurts that sort of work as a sour cream, and obviously guacamole is good. So I subsist on that, but occasionally I have cheese, and then beer. I've always been a beer lover. So and those are both pretty irritating. So, you know, because I eat pretty clean and I use that as an occasional cheat, the reaction is fairly minimal. You know, like my stomach will notice. They'll be like, hey, what did you just do? You know, like I'll have a little bit of a stomach thing. You know, if I go a little too overboard, I might feel a little foggy the next day, like a little like hungover, maybe you might say, like a little like kind of faded or a little groggy. And particularly if I go super crazy and do like a weekend, if I like go to my family for Christmas and eat a bunch of cookies or whatever, then it's a little longer term. But I have noticed that because I eat clean most of the time, I purge it out faster, that the reaction isn't as severe and doesn't last as long, and that I know how to get back to it.
Yeah, I know in our home, you mentioned siete. We love siete chips and their tortillas and I know there's other stuff I can't think right now. I feel like I buy like so much of their stuff. But one of the things we use the Daya cheese, and we put that on the siete chips.
Yep.
And I'm really, they're coming out. I don't know if it's out yet. I saw it at one of the expos. I think it was. Yeah, it was either East or West.
They have 3 different quesos out. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, no, they also have a restaurant style chip, which is like thicker. Cool. I haven't seen them in the stores yet, but that might help your nacho crate. Take the Daya and the restaurant, going on. So I know my son, loves that, and I do too. I'm a chipaholic, is what I say. So I can sit there and eat with him these sietes, which is really good. So you talked a little bit about cultured foods. I just want to touch on that real quickly. So those would be like other quote unquote medicines, right? So when you're looking at cultured foods, for people that don't know, that could be like a sauerkraut. And so those have a lot of what we call prebiotics and probiotics in there. And that's going to help, think of the good guys going in and helping, get rid of the bad guys in your gut flora. So is that what you're
totally. So there's all kinds of sauerkrauts, and then also sauerkraut-like foods. There's fermented pickles, and different fermented vegetables that you can eat. You can make them yourself. They're actually pretty easy to make, different recipes online. And then kombucha. I'm a huge kombucha fan. It replaced the need for alcohol for me. Like kombucha is really, when I want a beer, I want some wine, drinking kombucha can really satisfy that need for the like tangy, bubbly experience. And it's actually positive for the gut versus negative.
Love that. Well, I love, that these are really easy kind of things that someone can try. Especially I think of if you have a teenager in the house right now and you're trying to like, oh, wow, he's not been eating clean. And, how do I kind of substitute? These are foods that, as we were talking about the nachos and kombucha, and there's so many other things out there that that you can kind of substitute. I know Capello's has a naked crust, that pizza crust, and that's made from almond flour, which I know is, safe on the paleo as well. And so you can take that. We take olive oil, and then we take the Daya cheese, and then we put some meats on that. And so, you could be really creative today. And it didn't used to be that way. So I feel like we're so lucky to have, some of these other brands stepping up to the plate saying, hey, we want to provide some good options, for you guys. So I love it. And something the whole family can eat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, changing diet can be really hard because food is such a part of our culture. It's how we relate to each other. It's a lot of us, a lot of it's our comfort foods, like how we come down at the end of the day, or how we ease our stress. And so I think one of the biggest things to learn with any kind of diet, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's not like you go paleo all the way and never cheat, or go vegan or whatever, these ideas that's like a committing to a lifestyle forever. Like just starting to introduce, the more nutrient dense foods in is a great first step. Like just start getting bone broth at least once a week. Just start adding sauerkraut, make sure there's something green on your plate at every meal. There's some things like that you can do to really just move your way into it. And I think one of the cool things that paleo does is it doesn't, there's this stereotype that healthy food tastes bad, that it's like bland, because what was traditionally thought of as healthy, like whole grains and vegetarianism and these ideas, they didn't taste very good. They were low fat and grains, and they're just not very tasty. Whereas paleo, it's really good. It's like what you'd get at a fancy restaurant. It's like high quality meat and really yummy vegetables, is really like the staples. So don't have to think of it as all or nothing. We also we are paleo in our house. We only bring in paleo ingredients to our house. So whenever we cook or we're going for a snack or it's just not around, there's just no potato chips around to eat, and potato chips aren't paleo because the oils are really bad. We also cut out industrial seed oils. So, it's just an example. But then if we go to a restaurant or we go to a party or we're at a potluck and we, eat a little bit of something, it's not that big of a deal. Like our bodies can take it. So don't think that it's all or nothing, and that, just a big first step would be just don't have it in your house, just don't buy it at the grocery store.
I love that. And I think, though, for those watching, everybody's on a different extreme, right? So like my son, he can't have it. There is no cheating for him.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
It is all or none for him. Like, so because many watching, it's like if you've ever seen a young person who's more severe on the spectrum and they've had a cheat day accidentally, like maybe at school, somebody gave them something.
Real fast.
We have heard horror stories, right? So it depends on where you're at. If you're one of these people that haven't really been on a diet before and you're just trying to incorporate it, and you're having some issues the way Joe was talking about, I think this is a great way to incorporate it. Also, if you've never started a diet, I love some of the ideas that you gave. I think it's just such an easy first step. Like, add some bone broth. Add some kombucha or sauerkraut. I mean, it's just such an easy thing. So thank you so much, Joe, for being here today. How can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can learn me and my story at aspiepower.com. ASPIE power.com tells my story and a general approach to empowering autism. You can learn more about our baby food products at myserenitykids.com. My wife's name is Serenity, so our baby food company is called Serenity Kids, and those are all paleo pouches, which is another easy way to get a good paleo snack. Eat one of our baby food pouches, nutrient-dense meats and veggies. And we have some great recipes on there. And in general, if you're ever looking for recipe substitution, just include the type of food you want and the word paleo, and I guarantee you there's a recipe on there that's like a way to make a paleo cake or cupcake or nachos in this case, so that's just find a way.
I love it. Well, thank you for your enthusiasm and your passion and just everything you're doing for the community. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. Until next time. Bye, guys.